Welcome to the F-Tier Nuzlocke, a challenge where I take what are considered the worst Pokemon and prove that one man's trash is all that this man gets to use in his Nuzlocke. Today we'll be taking on Pokemon Y, and after you guys voted for this video, we went ahead and made our own tier list of encounters, and that video is linked below. But for the same reasons we banned Ditto before, we decided against using Smeargle and Delibird because they are largely unfun and not interesting to use in any run, mostly because they never leave the box anyway. Hardcore Nuzlocke rules apply. Let's run it. We lead off by selecting our starter, Chespin, not because we can use him, but because Delphox is the perfect blend of not too bulky and not too fast, which means we should always be able to handle it during the never-ending rival fights. Another rival gets Greninja out of this too, but you fight her literally only twice, and the first time is the standard immediate rival fight that just doesnn't matter. We're not free of the hand-holding quite yet, but are allowed to catch our own Pokemon almost right away. So we get to find our actual starter of Cannonbolt the Bunnelby, who without huge power is just not good. But by our standards, with dual stab, normal, and ground typing once it evolves, sounds useful to me. He's closely followed by Stinkfly the Weedle, who immediately evolves into a Beedrill thanks to our level cap. I'll say this much for later gen games, the wide variety of Pokemon from the very start means you get access to tons of terrible choices right off the bat. Normally I'd argue that's not a good thing, but in this specific case, I guess I'll take it. This also means we are able to pick up Ball Weevil the Burmy on Route 3 and Kickenhawk the Farfetch'd on Route 22 before tackling the first gym. Gen 6 does have a lot of Pokemon, but most of them only appear on 1 or 2 routes. Again, a similar issue to Gen 7. This is entirely the reason why overworld Pokemon needed to be a thing, and I can't believe it took them until Scarlet and Violet to ditch grass encounters altogether. Because even though the region is vast and diverse, it still doesn't feel like it here. I mean, all the water routes in Kalos, but Psyduck doesn't appear on any of them except this one, and like one other place as a horde. It makes the region feel more generic than anything else. Oh well, not gonna complain about using Farfetch'd again. And with that lucky encounter in hand, Viola's bug types really have no chance against the Dinner of Doom that is Kickenhawk, and we easily pick up our first gym badge. There is a lot that the game forces you through before the next gym. For starters, we have to meet up with Professor Sycamore in Lumio City and have a quick battle, which Kickenhawk clears with ease. He then gives us another starter Pokemon. For consistency's sake, we pick Bulbasaur, but this doesn't affect anything except which Megastone we receive for it later. And just like we never fired off a single Z-move in Ultra Moon, you can bet you won't see me Mega Evolving anyone in this run, despite how cool of a mechanic it is. God, I'm glad it's coming back. Not far from the professor's lab, a hop, skip, and a goat ride away, we take a quick detour into the Parfum Palace. Our goal here is to chase down a lost dog, which is exactly what I want to do in my magical creature battling game. At least we're rewarded with a fancy flute afterwards, which allows us to wake the ever-present sleeping Snorlax roadblock and finally move forward. Then we have a whole slew of encounters. Again! As a quick recap, on Route 6 we pick up Amphibian the Kecleon, and yes, Chameleon would have fit so much better, but I forgot he existed. Route 7 gives us Pesky Dust the Spritzy, Route 8 we find Clockwork the Spoink, and finally, we finish off our catching spree with Chromastone the Cubone found inside the Glittering Cave. Speaking of the Glittering Cave, we get to clear out Team Flare, the last actually evil team in Pokemon, who are here for some reason. Their ridiculous outfits and constant use of just the worst Pokemon are balanced out by the fact that, no joke, they want to end all life as we know it. Similar to Team Galactic, I suppose, but at least those guys were all about religious imagery and making a new world and Team Flare is literally just Thanos if Thanos took a good look at humans and decided, actually, know what? I think all of you have to go. And he'd be fucking right. Side quest aside, we're given a fossil that is simply too good for us to get any use out of in this run and are finally free to move forward into Silage City, where the next gym awaits. Unfortunately for the gym leader Grant, he uses said fossils and both are rock type. Chromastone and our newly evolved Cannonbolt make quick work of his team of 2. But don't worry, we're not too free. Before we can reach the 3rd gym, the gym leader herself challenges us with 2 Lucario and doesn't give us a badge after we defeat her. The hell kind of gym leader is this? And we aren't even allowed to chase her down for it. We are forced into the funhouse of mirrors that is Reflection Cave and find Astrodactyl the Woobat and tragically lose Amphibian to a wild Wobbuffet that we cannot run from and counter hurts like a bitch. This is the first time in any of these runs I've lost a Pokemon in a wild fight, but I suppose Wobbuffet would be the one to do it. And then we have to go to the Tower of Mastery because something Mega Evolution, I guess. And all our rivals are there and we have to fight one for the band and I'm so tired. Serena is definitely one of the trainers of this game. She always leads with a weird cat outside who is rightfully eaten alive by Stinkfly. Astrodactyl is a little shaky against Braixen, but does get the upper hand eventually, and Absol is handled swiftly by Chromastone's Boomerang. Does anyone else dare challenge me for this Mega Band? Now we finally earned the right, or whatever, to challenge the 3rd gym. The pacing in X and Y always strikes me as strange. There's a huge empty gap between the first 2 gyms, a little bit of a weird detour that it makes you go through between the 2nd and 3rd, and then a crazy rushed gauntlet for the last 5. Well, I'm not gonna complain now after it just made me go through so much work to get here, so let's start. Karina leads Mienfoo, and we're leading Pesky Dust with an Eviolite. Fortunately, that means with the defense boost, we can safely set up 2 Calm Minds and sweep through her team with Draining Kiss and Moonblast. On to the next. Though, first we do have a small intermission that nets us feedback the chat taught, and we're locked into another rival fight outside the next gym. Kick and Hawk leads against Serena's Meowstic, and we stay in against our Absol to chunk it down with Slash. But since Absol has priority in Quick Attack, we decide not to risk the second hit, switch into Pesky Dust, and clean up the KO with Draining Kiss. Breaksin proves to be a little difficult, locking us in with Fire Spin, but fortunately Pesky is able to keep her health up with Draining Kiss, and then switch out as soon as the trapping ends to let Astrodactyl finish off the Fox with Assurance. These rival fights really don't get much more exciting than that. But now we're allowed to enter the 4th gym and take on Ramos, the Grass-type gym leader. And to be honest, there isn't much to say about this fight either. Hawk takes out both Jumpluff and Go-Goat with ease, and Stinkfly comes in to finish off his Weeping Bell. Gym leader fights just don't get harder in this game. For whatever reason, X and Y decided that gym leaders were only allowed to use 3 Pokemon ever, and often not even good ones. Like seriously, this guy had a Weeping Bell. The second Grass gym leader in Gen 4 uses a Roserade. What is up with that? Even if I restricted myself to also only using 3 Pokemon, it really doesn't matter when 1 or 2, just like I used here, is enough to sweep through them every time anyway. We do have a little bit of backtracking to do now though. Picking up the Good Rod, we fly back to Parfum Palace and fish ourselves up Ripjaws the Goldeen. We quickly evolve Ripjaws in a Seaking and find the HM for Cut that we accidentally left behind the first time we were here. We need this to get a few items hidden around such as leftovers, but it's not necessary for anything else. Before the next gym battle back in Lumio City, we do have to restore power to the city or something like that. And of course, this means Team Flare is causing trouble in the power plant, but honestly, Team Flare fights are even easier than gyms half the time. The admins only ever have 2 Pokemon. I'm not kidding. They're literally not even worth covering, so I won't. And for the evil team with the most admins, that's just sad. In fact, I bet you don't even remember the names of any of these admins. Maybe 1 or 2. But go on, prove me wrong in the comments. And while you're down there, you should definitely hit like and subscribe because a little number up makes brain go happy. So anyway, we drive them out, turn the power plant off and back on again, and skip ourselves up to the fight against Clement. Leading off with Chromastone, now a Marowak, thinking Bone Ring can hit flying types, but nope. I'm thinking of the ability to let that happen in Radical Red. Whoops. But since Emolga can only use Aerial Ace against us anyway, we stay in and whittle away its HP with Headbutt until the rat falls. Against Helioisk, we switch into Stinkfly, who takes the expected Grass Knot well, but then second guessing if he can survive a Thunderbolt, we end up bringing in Ball Weevil to take his place. With a little bit of protecting, leftovers recovery, and growth, she takes out the Helioisk no problem with Razor Leaf. Magneton comes out next to set up the electric terrain, we hit a quick Razor Leaf to break Sturdy, and the next turn I expected boosted Thunderbolt to come through for big damage, but I guess the resist was too much, and Chromastone takes a Mirror Shot on the switch instead. Now, I know Marowak is a slow Pokemon, but I do expect Magneton to be slower, which was a mistake, admittedly. And Chromastone falls to a second Mirror Shot. A completely avoidable death, but at least we still have a decent ground type in Cannon Bolt. He comes in and cleans up the KO with Dig. Of course now, if you check the time, it's been about 30 seconds since our last rival fight, and that means it's time for the next one. They all kind of go about the same though. This time we lead Stinkfly, takes out Meowstic with Twin Needle, and Pesky Dust gets a few Calm Mind boosts and eventually takes out the Delphox. Absol also falls in just a single Moonblast. Serena then tells us she's tired of losing every time, and I'm just like, then stop fighting me? Beyond Lumio City on Route 14, we find Wildvine the Carnivine, and we're back on track with the Gauntlet of Gym battles by challenging Valerie. Ripjaws can take an early lead by one-shotting the Mawile with Surf, and unexpectedly also one-shots the Mr. Mime with Waterfall as well. Well, that's anticlimactic. Sylveon tries to hang on a good bit longer, largely thanks to Valerie using potions at every opportunity, but it's no match for the outlasting queen that is Pesky Dust when she combines Calm Mind and Toxic. And then surprising nobody, Team Flare is up to no good again, this time stationed out in the local Pokeball factory, which is a thing, but it takes no time at all to clear out their weak admins, especially when the game pairs you up with Serena for a double battle against them, which really just means she takes all the hits and does no damage in return, but I digress. Next, we find a Lipard named Spider Monkey, weird name, on Route 15, and we're off to the obligatory snowy part of every Pokemon region, where we get to ride on the world's smallest Mamoswine. I want to be very clear, these things are supposed to be over 8 feet tall. At least we get to catch ourselves Big Chill the Snover for our effort. And oh look, the next gym! And oh look, another rival fight! Now with a real type advantage, Spider Monkey makes quick work of Meowstic, but Serena's Delphox proves to be a bit of an issue, hitting a little too hard into Pesky Dust for my liking. We do get the Toxic off, but now it's just about switching around to lock it into place. We bring in Ripjaws, who will take either of Delphox's fire or psychic attacks, and in my mind, guarantee that Delphox will always use psychic against it. Unfortunately, Serena isn't smart enough to understand type advantages, which means when when I switch in Ball Weevil to take the expected psychic, she actually eats a flamethrower and promptly burns to death. To this day, I have no idea why. I mean, I know it just means there were overlapping roles, but come on, you use flamethrower into my fish like you wanted to turn them into sticks. But this does mean that Spider Monkey can come out and easily pick up the KO with Fake Out. I suppose all things considered, if I really did expect psychic, I should have just gone to live powered anyway, but hindsight is 2020. Serena also finally gained a 4th Pokemon, so against Jolteon we switch into Cannonbolt, and it doesn't get to do much as it just falls to a single dig. Against Absol, we just stay in and 2-shot with Double Kick. Alright Serena, I see you actually dealing some damage for once, good for you! It won't happen again. I know where you sleep. Against Gym Leader Olympia, Pesky Dust is able to set up to +6 off of Calm Mind Boost, and though her Pokemon are bulky enough to take a few hits to try to hinder us, it isn't enough to overcome the sheer might of Pesky. Sigilyph and Slowking fall in just a few turns of Draining Kiss, but poor Meowstic can't even take a single attack. Now it's time for the classic before the 8th gym there's evil team shit going down part of the game. We chase down Lysander to his hidden base in the cafe in Lumiose and challenge him to a battle. Oh, who's Lysander, you ask? He's the big bad of Team Flare, and like apparently nobody in the entire world knows that, to the point where he's even friends with the professor and walks around all willy-nilly. Even though it's like super obvious he's super evil and even goes so far as to like blatantly tell people he wants to end humanity. It's like a sitcom where everyone around him just laughs it off. Like, haha, you talk crazy sometimes anyway. God, no wonder this guy went straight for Death Rays. Anyway, his team sucks. Feedback is able to one-shot his Mienfoo, and a second Chatter confuses Gyarados. We then switch to Wild Vine on the expected Aqua Tail, and Gyarados locks himself into Outrage. A rookie move, to be sure, when I still have the almighty Pesky Dust waiting in the wings. Not sure why Lysander sends out Murkrow first over Pyroar, but I'm not complaining. 2 Calm Mind boosts, and Pesky is able to sweep through those last 2 Pokemon. Also, how the hell do you actually pronounce his name? Not even kidding, I read this part of the script twice, pronouncing it both Lysander and Lysandre, because I've always said Lysander, but now that I'm seeing it spelled out, it definitely is spelt like Lysandre, which is weird. I kinda like it. The end of the hidden base contains a 2-switch system on their Doomsday device, as all supervillains should have, and back there is where we also meet Zaraznik. And that is how I'm going to pronounce that, right or wrong, because it just doesn't matter, nobody remembers this character. Although I'd be willing to bet if you're one of those that went down to the comments and actually told me any of the admins you remembered, it was probably this guy. And like all other Team Flare admins, he pulls the 2 easily beatable Pokemon strat out, which ends with both his Crobat and Malamar getting absolutely dominated by Astrodactyl. Can you see why I didn't touch on these before? Like, this guy actually has the 2 better Pokemon out of any of the admins, and they still suck. And being the sore loser that he is, after losing the battle, Zaraznik activates the Death Ray anyway. Honestly, gotta respect it. Have to shut it down, but gotta respect it. We run to Geosenge Town, a little town in the middle of Nowheresville where this world's version of Stonehenge resides. Although I guess there's another Stonehenge in Gen 8, if I remember. I don't know, same thing. What's the meaning of Stonehenge? Here we find another hidden Team Flare base, hear Lysander's evil speech about how all the world except Team Flare will be killed, yada yada. You and Cyrus would make great friends, really. We then rush into his basement, free the giant death bird that we are forced to catch, and are cornered into one last fight with Lysander wearing whatever the fuck this is. It never really is explained, is it? Man's gone full Doc Ock. Again, I respect it. At least this time he's got a Mienshao to lead off with, but Pesky Dust is more than capable of taking it out with just a few uses of Draining Kiss. Honchkrow comes out next, which, since it has Steel Wing, poses a bit of a threat to our poor fairy, but by playing it smart, we Toxic the bird, Protect to start the buildup of damage, then the next turn hit a super effective Draining Kiss, healing up the damage we've taken over the course of the 2 turns. Poison damage quickly cleans up the KO. Pyroar, though resisting Draining Kiss, falls in much the same way. Gyarados is the only scary member of his team, now coming equipped with a shiny new Mega Form, and Ironhead dealing some scary damage against Pesky. Fortunately, we're bulky enough to take 1 hit, and Gyarados' Mega makes him weak to our Fairy type attack, so we deal about half damage to it in return. Now we swap in Ripjaws to take the resisted Ironhead, which forces Gyarados into Outrage. We take 1 hit and miss the Supersonic, but it just doesn't matter. We swap back into Pesky, who's immune to the Dragon attack, and force Gyarados to be confused anyway. We can take 1 more hit at our current HP, but unfortunately flinch before we can heal with Draining Kiss. Fine, we'll do it again. This time we switch in Wild Vine, avoid the Aqua Tail, and eat an Outrage while poisoning the snake with Toxic. Pesky comes back into the Outrage, and now we can simply stun at Gyarados thanks to a Confusion hit and the stacking poison damage. With the world saved and millions of lives spared, we move on with our lives like it's any normal Thursday afternoon. Lysander goes the fuck knows where, and we're back to our standard goal. Reach and defeat the Elite Four with our band of misfits. And to add to that band, we pick up Heat Blast the Heatmore on Route 18, just in time too, since now we have a fun little gauntlet of fights all lined up for us. Whoop-de-doo. The first of which is Professor Sycamore and Coraway Town. Not that this fight is much of anything. Weird for the professor of this region to be obsessed with Kanto starters, but it's because they Mega Evolve or whatever. Not that he uses even a single Mega here. Pesky can easily reach a +6 Calm Mind boost since Venusaur doesn't have any poison attacks, and easily sweep from there. Next is Shauna. Remember her? No, you don't. This is the first of 3 back-to-back battles, so we want to lead with Cannon Bolt, but it isn't for her Delcatty. We quickly switch out to Wild Vine and Toxic Stall the cat to death with Stockpile and Swallow. Might legitimately be my first time ever using Swallow, but only quitters ever use Spit Up. We pull off a bit of tricky switching against Goodra to try and preserve HP, though Pesky Dust is unlucky enough to get poisoned by Sledge Wave in the process. But eventually toxic damage does the slug in anyway. Ripjaws can come in against Shauna's Greninja and simply Horn Attack it to death while it tries to go for its double team ninja shenanigans, and that's the first match down. Our other 2 not rivals show up next. Remember them? No, you don't. And without so much as a heal, we're put up against Tierno. His lead Talonflame can't do much physically to our Cannon Bolt, and return should be enough to 2-shot, but unfortunately I learned that Talonflame can have an ability that isn't Gale Wings, and poor Cannon Bolt is burned after just a single hit. This doesn't change the plan, and we just spam return until it's in range of Quick Attack, but it does cut things much closer. Against his Roserade, we switch to Wild Vine, and I try to poison a poison type. Real smart thinking there, Keeps. Doing great work. Oh, whatever. Feedback can come in to take the resisted Petal Dance, and while it does hit through Confusion the next turn, Feedback survives on a sliver of health and is able to take out the Roserade the next turn with a second Chatter. Phew! I'm relying on Wild Vine to take 2 hits from Crawdaunt here, and he does, but Leaf Tornado barely misses the KO in retaliation. Uh-oh. Without missing a beat, we bring in Pesky on the expected Night Slash, then Ripjaws to take the resisted Crabhammer. Ripjaws can then outspeed and KO the Shellfish with another Horn Attack. Phew! Again, before the third fight, Trevor at least has the decency to heal us back up for an even fight. Well, not even, considering these guys still refuse to use full teams, but like, whatever, you know what I mean. Ignoring the potential consequences behind being able to use Dig on a thin wooden bridge, Cannon Bolt one-shots Trevor's lead Raichu. We then switch in Feedback against his incoming Florges. But not trusting the range on Fly to 2-shot it, we switch into Pesky the Faithful, and even though our toxic attempts are thwarted by Misty Terrain, a few Calm Mind boosts lets Draining Kiss pull out the weed with ease. And to round out the most mismatched team of all time, Aerodactyl is in next. Unfortunately for him, as a flying type, he is not protected by the Misty Terrain, so it's only a matter of time before he falls to poison damage. Well, they tried, I suppose. Our last encounter is hiding just below the bridge we're on, and we gladly pick up Buzzshock the Stunfisk. With his unique dual stab, I cannot stress this enough, this flat fuck of a fish is absolutely invaluable for the Elite Four. But we're not quite there yet. We still have to hunt down the last gym leader hiding in a forest somewhere, and after only getting lost a little bit, I swear, we're able to challenge him for the last badge. But there really isn't much to talk about for the battle itself. Wilfric has an Abomasnow, Avalugg, and Gragonal, and we have a heap more. Nice try, big guy. That means we are 1 victory road and 1 rival fight away from the Elite Four at last. That's right, I said another rival fight, god damn it, but don't worry, I'll make it brief. Aromatisse. That's it. That's the fight. Pesky Dust wins. I don't know if this is kudos to the strength of Aromatisse itself, fairy typing as a whole, or just a major flaw that spans all of the major fights in this game. Gonna think it's a combination of all 3. But I will say, I've never used an Aromatisse in any game ever before. I was very surprised at how effective it was throughout the entire game. The grand castle that houses the Elite Four awaits in front of us. Another Elite Four that can be challenged in any order, which means I get to pick my own poison. We challenge Seabold first, the water type user, who leads off with a Clawitzer. It's an easy excuse for us to set up to +6 on Calm Mind while tanking water pulses and fire off the 1-hit KO with Draining Kiss. Gyarados is in next, and Draining Kiss does enough to knock it down to red, which locks poor Seabold into healing it until he runs out of potions entirely. Eventually, Gyarados falls. Poor Barbaracle falls to the Kiss of Death in the same way. Starmie can actually take a hit, so we Toxic the Star first, but then 2-shot anyway. Which means Malva is up next, the fire user that I'm pretty sure is part of Team Flare. This means that the Elite Four does in fact 100% sanction the works of Lysander, including destroying all humanity. Very cool of them. Can't say I think they're wrong. Fortunately, Buzzshock is plenty strong enough to sweep her team with complete ease. Pyroar and Torque will fall to Earthquake, Talonflame to Thunderbolt, and Chandelure to Earthquake once again. Next is Drosna. What a name. Her Dragalge lead is met by Clockwork, who after a Calm Mind boost of his own can take care of the dragon like, well, clockwork. Too bad for the Sludge Bomb poison though. We outspeed the Altaria, so while Drosna is locked into healing just like Seabold before her, we secure a 2-shot against the Bird of Power Gem, using our Citrus to stay ahead of the poison damage. When Noivern comes out, we take the easy switch into Pesky Dust, set up our Calm Mind boost, and take out both Noivern and Druddigon with Draining Kiss. Wickstrom is up next, the last member of the Elite Four. His lead Klefki is no match for Heat Blast, who quickly draws first blood with Flamethrower. Against Probopass, we bring in a Abomasnow, who can break Sturdy with Hail and snag a one-hit with Earthquake. Aegis/Next, but that's just a quick swap over to Heat Blast, and Flamethrower one-shots the poor sword. And since Caesar is literally designed to melt, I don't think how he dies is worth repeating. The Kalos Elite Four is cleared through as easily as they were set up. Only one final challenge awaits. Champion Diantha. Finally, somebody in this game learned they can have a full team of 6 Pokemon. That doesn't last for long though, as Buzzshock launches a Thunderbolt that easily one-shots poor Hawlucha. Whoops, down to 5. Against Aurorus, my original idea was to use Brick Break on Abomasnow, but turns out I forgot to teach it to him before the fight. Oh well, not the first time. Instead, we pivot over to Plan P, standing for Pork, and bring in Clockwork. A few Calm Mind boosts later, and Power Gem is more than enough to fell the behemoth. When Gourgeist comes in after, Psychic makes quick work of him as well. Expecting a crunch from Tyrantrum next, we switch ourselves out to Pesky Dust, and a few Draining Kisses after a bit of annoying healing, take down that dinosaur as well. Goodra is set up fodder, we Toxic it to start eating into its massive HP pool, then our bread and butter Calm Mind and Draining Kiss combo let us heal off the damage we're taking from Fire Blast and KO at the same time. Now that our special defense is already buffed, Mega Gardevoir really is no issue, falling in just 3 hits with a little help from Toxic. But wait, there's more! Remember that giant man we saw locked up that one time? No? Well, he shows up here too, for just a little battle to remind us that no, the game hasn't learned anything, and it's back to giving trainers just 3 Pokemon again. I'm not even going to commentate on it. I will just let it play in the background while I end the video. Which means, for all intents and purposes, player has defeated Pokemon Y. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you've made it this far, then that must mean you like this kind of challenge run content, so you should subscribe to see more of that. If this is your first time on the channel, you'll want to check out these previous F-tier runs I've done coming up on your screen right now. There's also a playlist down below if you want to get caught up with the series. And if you want to see this run in its entirety, there's a second link in the description for a playlist of streams where we played through this and completed the challenge. Good long VODs if you just need to put them on for some background noise, you know? This run was honestly probably my least favorite so far. After the first attempt, I honestly almost didn't even bother trying again. X and Y just feel so empty. It's full of story, sure, but it's empty and hollow compared to Gen 5. I forgot so much of the plot until replaying this for its run, and honestly, I can see why. And most of it got cut from the video anyway because it just never goes anywhere. And that's kind of sad because personally, I think the game itself is really pretty, and I'm a big fan of what they try to do with these titles. And Kalos as a region has so much potential, which is why I am personally so excited for Legends ZA. I know apparently we're only locked to Lumio City, but still, the potential is there for something great. But that's just my thoughts. Whether you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. Regardless, I'm glad to have added this to the F-tier series, and while I'll definitely be revisiting it soon, I've been working on something new for my next major video, and I'm very excited to share it with you all soon. Until then, in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will catch y'all in the next run. See ya.